now to order. And we're going to start with the opening prayer. I'll do that if you would, please bow your heads. Father, please guide us in our decisions today, that we are fair and just in all the discussions. Help us make the right decisions, and that would be pleasing in your sight. We say this and ask this in your Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, follow Commissioner Cheshire with the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And follow Commissioner Harrison as we do the pledge to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. Be seated. Counselor, you're up.
Batter up. Good morning.
Good morning.
I appreciate y'all letting me come over this morning and talk to you. I sent a letter a couple of weeks back, which I think essentially outlines the request from my office. So I'm here and be glad to answer any questions you have about it. I can run through that briefly to go over it again. As far as our budget, the worksheets that we submitted, the only actual increases listed on there are in two categories. I've asked for an increase in dues and publications and in training. With regard to dues and publications, our current budget is $8,000, and it's been like that for a number of years, but the last 2 years, we've run way over that. Last year, we went over $4,200, and this year, our budget's already depleted. In fact, we're already over at almost $2,000. And so we have a real need in that area for an increase, and I submitted a request for an increase of $4,000 for that particular item. And we haven't changed our subscriptions or dues that we pay each year. It's just been an increase in cost. And so we still receive the same thing that we've always received. But anyway, our budget's no longer sufficient to cover those costs. And we have been supplementing that out of our hot check account in the past to some extent. And but those funds are dissipating fast as folks no longer write maybe wear checks anymore, so we don't get a whole lot in for that account anymore. Likewise, it's kind of the same circumstance for training. We did manage to stay within our budget last year on our county funds for training, but most years we're running over on that and supplementing. We do supplement that heavily out of our hot check account in some years. So again, I've asked for an increase of $2,000 on that particular item, and we have a real need for that. I say, by attending the bare minimum on our training last year, we stayed within budget, but and when I say bare minimum, I mean just by the number of hours required by the state for the lawyers. We stayed within our budget or right at it, but if we attend anything extra, and we work in a lot of different areas, which we do need training beyond the bare minimum legal requirements, we exceed that budget and have to usually supplement it out of our hot check fund. So anyway, I've submitted a request for a couple $1,000s increase in that area. Beyond that, I've also, and this is covered in my letter, submitted an increase for our employees. I've asked for an additional assistant attorney to assist me with primarily in the civil areas, open records, working with elected officials and commissioners' courts with contracts, employment issues, litigation, things of this nature. I think we have a real need for that. We've seen an increase in that area, certainly in the area of open records. That's an area that continues to grow as the public becomes more and more aware of that, and so we get lots of requests that we have to deal with, and when I say we, it's the various departments in the county. So I think we could certainly use some assistance in that area, and so in this particular position, I don't believe is actually added to the worksheet that I submitted, but, and so if the funds are available, I mean, we need the position, and so we're asking for that. There's also, as I understand it, some possibility that, I don't know if this has been finalized yet, that we might be receiving some work that the DA currently handles. It's in the nature of the CPS caseload, and if that came our way, we would most certainly need that position. I don't see any way with our current staffing that we could handle that, so. Anyway, and also.
For the commissioners, it looks like that's gonna happen. We're probably gonna, I think that's probably the best way to handle it is to shift CPS downstairs to the county attorney, and that's gonna mandate another person almost definitely. Sorry, go ahead.
That's fine, Judge. And I've also submitted a request, and again, this is certainly contingent on funding. It's also contingent on, what's available for other agencies. I know the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office also have real pressing needs, but I do make this request, and if the funds become available to cover it, that for an additional administrative staff position. For years and years, we've had an assistant, a part-time administrative staff person, which we've always paid out of our supplemental hot check funds. And they usually work from 20 to 25 hours a week. And we've had that position for years, but it hasn't been filled for almost 2 years now. But and the central reason is that we don't have the funds anymore to cover it, but we still have a need for that person. And they assisted us with reception responsibilities, filing, and the other staff with their administrative duties. So, again, subject to the availability of funds and other people's needs, I do have that need, and so I asked the court to take a look at that.
Is that a part-time position?
It has been in the past. My request is actually for a full-time position, but that's how we funded it in the past, is a part-time position.
Do we have any idea on an estimated number of CPS cases that you think your office would probably be handling?
I don't have any personal information on that.
Just Amber and ask.
No, I was just curious what the number might be of what the caseload increase would be. I appreciate it.
And finally, you seeing the letter I sent you, I did make a request, and again, this is certainly subject to availability of funds, but the court take a look at the salary schedule in my office, and in this regard, the whole request is based on essentially a comparison with the district attorney's office, and I don't begrudge them what they're being paid by any means, but especially for my administrative staff across the board, they're paid less than their counterparts in the district attorney's office, and certainly for the administrative staff, I think they do essentially the same job. So I was asking the court to take a look at increasing their salaries across the board by $1,000 to bring them more in line with their counterparts in the district attorney's office. And I made a similar request for my assistant attorneys. I understand that traditionally they're paid considerably less than the assistants in the district attorney's office, and that's a common practice in a lot of areas based on the seriousness, I guess, of the cases that are handled. But I asked the court to also take a look at increasing their salaries by $2,000, which would not bring them up to the level of the assistant DAs, but would bring them, make it a closer difference between the two salaries. So anyway, that's my request. I'll be glad to answer any questions I can.
Gentlemen?
About what dollar amount is the disparity between the two?
As far as,
Yeah, thank you. Never mind, he handed it to me here.
on the attorneys, it ranges from about 4,000 up to 20,000, a little over 20,000 difference at the current
I
time.
remember reading it, but I don't have it available. Thank you.
The administrative assistants, there's some variation, but a $1,000 raise for each would bring most of them within a comparable salary. There's a couple that the difference is bigger. Okay.
If I have this calculated correctly, the difference would be the $155,054 between what he's requesting and what the current status is.
Right.
One more time, 100.
155.
155,054,
054.
$155,054.
That's for all of it.
We're not taking anything out initially. We're leaving it in and looking at it, and then we're seeing exactly where we stand. So as of right now, that includes all of it.
Okay. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I say, my pressing needs are obviously the budget items that we're going over
Right.
each year. But I certainly hope you'll consider all of our requests. So,
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
All right, Tom, you're up next. Go ahead, you've got a minute and a half.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioners, Judge, Auditor, and Clerk. I appreciate y'all taking the time to allow me to come before you today to discuss Constable Precinct 1. This will be my 16th budget year to approach, and the office has come a long way in 16 years since I met my first budget. First of all, as the constables go, and I've tried to impart upon you that we do have 4 constables in the county, and anything I say today is not taking away from anyone else. The precincts are what they are, and they each have their own unique characteristics and qualities, and no 2 precincts are at parity with the other. We're all different, and it's a different ball game in each community. And as you know, the Constable and JP precincts in our county are set up to serve our communities. I'm the constable for Lufkin. We have one for Central and Hudson. We have one that serves the Huntington-Zavala area, and we have one that serves the Diboll area. So each of those communities are unique in their composition of the folks that we serve. And we're basically talking about allocation of resources here today. And what I'm here to submit to you today is to submit or allocate the resources where they're most needed. And obviously, with the size of the precincts and the people that we're serving, I feel like my precinct is the one that's is growing quite a bit. And I have the bulk of the population. I have probably nearly half the population of the county in my precinct. And in our line of work, the people are who we're serving. The people are our customers. The people are the problem. So where you have a lot of people, you have a lot of activity. Where you have very few people, you have a little bit of activity. And we all know that the county budget, there's a finite amount of resources to work with. So we have to allocate those based on the need and where they're best used. The constable's operations and based on the amount of money that we have to operate on and the role that we each play in our respective communities is in essence is set by the Commissioner's Court. Y'all allocate resources to us to serve our people. So our ability to serve and what we do is somewhat dependent on those resources. And each constable, being one of the few operations in the county that is a one-man department, a one-man show. In other words, if the work product and the output of the office is done, it's done by that office holder. We don't have a staff of people to help us or a secretary or anybody else. We have to do all the work ourselves, whatever that may be. And so what I'm here today to ask you for, I've got a sheet that I want to pass out to you.
Is this additional,
This is
updated?
a recap of, I didn't bring enough. Sorry. That's all right. This is a recap of some things, but if you'll notice, there's an A and a B on there. And again, going back to funding from the Commissioner's Court to the operation of the Constable Office, we have everything we do is kind of separated into A and B groups. A is the primary role and responsibilities of the constable that we are charged with doing. That's the have-tos of the office, and that's represented by A up there. The B part is a portion of the work that we engage in that is our, if we want to, because, you know, all the constables are, you know, being elected, we set our own hours, we work when we want to, if we want to, and so what we choose to do is reflective of whether or not we're doing the basic bare minimum, or are we going above and beyond in the service to our constituents. You know, just what is each operation doing. And so everything that we do is easily quantified because there are sources of information that reflect on the activity of each office. So A being the have-tos, if you'll notice that most of the work of the constable, what our statutory and constitutional duties are, is to serve the justice court. Constables are the executive officer of the lowest court, the justice court, and meaning we execute what comes out of the court, be that warrants, civil papers, writs, whatever we're charged with doing. The sheriff is the executive officer of the higher courts, the county court at law, and the judicial or district courts. So he handles the higher courts, the constables handle the lower courts. And so in our handling of the lower courts, you can see how diverse the requirements are upon the constable and the duties of his office by the information I've presented to you today. Most of what we do is fee-driven. The constables collect fees of office for the work that they perform. We receive process from the courts, from prosecutors, attorneys, wherever we get process from, that we go out to serve in most cases, which in all cases on the civil side, except for cases of indigency, we go out and try to find these people, get them served with their papers, and the county collects a fee for our services. And so our work product is, it generates fees. So those fees of office help minimize the taxpayer cost of holding up the office of constable in this county. And I think you'll see that the fees of office collected by Precinct 1 are doing a pretty good job of taking the burden off the taxpayer. So when I come in here asking for whatever I ask for, it's usually not tax money I'm asking for. It's just a transfer of the fees that are collected from office over to assist my operation. On the want-tos or can-dos of the office in Section B, you can kind of see where everybody falls in that by their state reporting. And that kind of tells you, you know, what is the level of motivation to get out and go kind of above and beyond on that. So you can leave that to your own devices to determine what reflection that is on whatever operation you're currently analyzing. A lot of the work that we do on the civil process side is handling evictions. And evictions, for the constable, the Justice of the Peace Court is the court of original jurisdiction for evictions in the county. And so all the JPs hear eviction cases and they rule on those, and evictions are a big part of what I do. As you can see the numbers there, how where I sit versus the other precincts on evictions, and they're very time consuming. I have a higher percentage than any of the other precincts of having to go out and be present on removing people from their tenancy and getting their property moved out to the street and dealing with dozens of landlords. You know, we've got a lot of rental property here in Lufkin, and so this takes up a lot of my time. I have to make multiple trips out there, and on those evictions, that does not, there's two parts to an eviction. First, the initial part to get them into court, and then the second part when they refuse to leave, which in my area we have a disproportionately high number of those people who refuse to get out until they're forced out, which requires me to go back out there with another piece of paper to execute a writ. And so evictions are a large portion of what we do. And I would make note to you that at the very bottom of the synopsis that I gave to you on my request it's an analysis of the activity by court And we have 2, what I would call part-time JP courts here in the county. They don't even meet 5 days a week. We have eviction court on every Monday and Friday. We have to operate, all 5 working days. So if you have a JP court that's shut down a day, any day, whatever day, there are A, no cases filed with that court because they're closed, and B, there's no cases generated to give to the constable for him to go out. So effectively, you've got a 4-day work week for 2 offices, if it so be, unless, a lot of what we do is time sensitive, and so we can't sit on it, have to get out these evictions, have a very short fuse on those to get those done. And the last component of what I've given you on my synopsis is the breakdown of the just the number of people we serve, just from numbers that are readily available from Connie's office. But regarding my budget request for this year, because of the increased caseload, the volume of work that is coming through my office after 16 years, and the county's growth and the population increase, and more especially the caseload, I'm here today asking you for a part-time helper to be budgeted for the next year. Again, the high amount of fees that I'm collecting for the county on the work that I do, this is not going to be a huge burden on taxpayers to support me in this, and for y'all to support me in this, because the fees of office are probably more than going to cover this part-time position, because I've submitted to you a bare bones request, which is basically enough funding to cover about 400 hours of part-time assistance, okay? And those would be scheduled and delegated and done at the based on the needs of the court and based on the needs of the constable's office in getting the paper served. One thing that I didn't touch on is when I was referring to our statutory and constitutionally charged duties. Statutorily, we're to execute the process that comes out of the Justice of the Peace Court. Statutorily, the Constitution of this state says that the constable shall attend each session of the Justice Court, okay? Now, I'm not a magician, and I can't be in 2 places one time, but you look at the volume of work that I have and tell me how I can be out in the field doing all that and sitting in the courtroom all day with Judge Ball over there based on our volume. You see how many cases we have. And civil work is not like traffic tickets, okay? A court can generate a lot of traffic fines, and that work is all handled by the 2 court clerks because they're taking phone calls. The judge cannot talk to defendants calling in on cases. The court clerks handle those cases. They collect the money. Somebody gets a ticket, does one of 3 things. They either pay it, take defensive driving, or they don't show up at all. And none of those 3 things, for the most part, has to involve a judge unless they plead not guilty, okay? And so our county attorney is sitting here now, and I will submit to you that probably the number of traffic court cases that we try with a prosecutor before the judge, either with or without a jury, in this county annually is probably 20. Just a guess, ballpark, just swag guess, okay? So what I'm getting at is traffic cases, the judge doesn't have to be involved in those. Civil cases, different matter. You cannot resolve a civil case without having some kind of a hearing with the judge. So he has to hear something out of every one of them that's filed that is not settled out before it goes to court. So he has to set those things. We have a docket in our court just for Woodland Heights Hospital. We have a law firm that is their collection agent, and he has a special docket just for them because of the huge amount of cases. And their cases, you'll see the number of cases filed and the number I serve, their cases are handled by a private process server. If they decided that they wanted me to handle their caseload, they would dump about 300 on me overnight. I can't handle that. That's how our court works. It's very busy. The entire county of Nacogdoches last year, according to the OCA, handled just over 1,000 civil cases, okay? 4 precincts. Judge Ball by himself handled 1,216, according to the OCA. So I'm talking about the caseload because the Constitution says that the constable shall attend each session of the justice court, and I can't be in two places at once. So fortunately, Judge Ball will say, hey, Tom, this low impact, I don't anticipate any problems. I'm not going to need you there, so you can go out and chase your evictions and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's nice, but technically I'm in the wrong by doing that. So, like I said, I'm not a magician. I can't be two places at one time. So I'm submitting that to you. I need your assistance so I can take this part-time person and schedule them to be the bailiff in the court. That's our constitutional duty, to be the bailiff of the justice court. Yes, sir.
You're basing that part-time position on 400 hours?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just came up with just pull figures out of the air. Just basically the cost of a salary plus matching tax. There'd be no benefits, i.e. insurance, retirement, and all that stuff. So I just pulled a round number out of the air, plugged in 400 hours, and that's how I came up with that amount. Will it be a little bit less? Probably, but that's if you give me that budgeted amount and the hourly rate is lower, that means I might have 425 hours to commit somebody. Okay, and so what I'm asking for is a fixed dollar amount, and when you have a fixed dollar amount, you can operate within that range. It's just like a car allowance. If you say you've got X number of dollars per year on the car, you have to manage that to make it last. So part of what I would do if you gave me a part-time assistant would be to manage his time in a manner to where it comes into the budgeted amount. Okay? And here also, if I have a fixed amount of budgeted for part-time, you know, if you allowed me to commission more than one person, it doesn't matter if I had 10 part-timers, I'd only have X amount of money to pay them, okay? If you had 10 and you split them up 10 ways for whatever, however, you know, so I don't have to have one. If I could commission 2 people, that'd be fine. It's not going to cost any more because I'm going to be working within a fixed dollar amount, if you follow me on that, okay?
We have 200 working hours a week.
Pardon me?
We have 200 working hours a week.
Okay.
Okay, how many hours a week, I mean, that would cover 2 weeks worth.
Well, 200 working hours a week. We got 40 hours in a week.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, maybe roughly Massimino's 200 per
hours a
month. Yeah. So, again, this will be on an as-needed basis.
Okay.
When, you know, I don't take a vacation. I work 6 days a week most times, okay? I have to get it done because there's a timeline here, okay? And when y'all call me, I always answer my phone. I'm never gone. I'm always here. I'm always responsive. Y'all know that my heart is to serve the people. I love it. I enjoy my position, and I try to do the best job that I can. And so, you know, you have to walk before you run. And so I'm just asking for a part-timer to start out to see how it works, to manage it, see how the workflow goes, see how well the justice of the peace is served by having more bailiff time in the courtroom. I'm in the courtroom, but then I jump up and leave and go out, you know. And so that's what I'm asking for. And here's one caveat to what is fixing to impact all of the justice courts, but it's mainly going to be Precinct 1 because we're the kind of the catch-all for everything. The Texas legislature, which has been signed by the governor, has passed a bill that has raised the jurisdictional limit of the Justice of the Peace Court from $10,000 to $20,000, meaning everybody that's going to get sued for up to $20,000 is going to be filed in JP court now instead of anything over $10,000 up to the $100,000. That 10 to 20 gap is going to shift from the county court to the JP court, okay? And so in doing my due diligence to kind of investigate that, because it's fixing to hit Judge Ball and me and some of the other precincts to a lesser extent, because these are attorney cases and they're going to file, they're not going to run down to Zavala to file a lawsuit. They're going to keep them right here in town where they can drive 3 minutes and be in the courtroom, okay? So called Amy's deputy clerk, Nathan, who handles the civil filings over here at the county clerk's office, and just posed a general scenario. Hey, Nathan, do you know that the governor signed the bill passing the increase in jurisdictional limit of the JP Court to $20,000. Oh, really? I heard about that. I said, just off the top of your head, your filings that occur with you in county court from $10,000 to $20,000, how many is that going to be for us? He said, all of them. I said, what? He said, yeah, nearly everything that comes through here is, falls in that range. And he's saying, that generally. So if you've got 500 to 600 cases in county court filed per year, and Nathan says, a lot of them are ours. So let's just say, conservatively, say 50% of those 600 jump over into the JP court system. I say nearly all of that transfer is going to happen in our precinct because they're higher dollar amounts that are represented by attorneys, and it's collection stuff that are represented by attorneys. It's going to be debt on credit cards, the cars that people, when Genco repos a car that they loan $35,000 on, that the guy's paid $17,000 on it, the residual amount when they repo it because he can't pay for it, they sue them for that residual amount. And medical bills, credit cards, debt claims, car wrecks. You can't wreck a car now and have damage, hardly under $10,000 unless it's just an old clunker. So we're going to get a large influx of cases. Judge Ball said, I think we're going to get 500. I'm going to submit to you that conservatively we could have a 300 case increase. Well, that's all going to fall on old Tom here, who does it all by himself, one-man show. So all of that filing is going to generate a fee. It generates a fee to the court, generates a fee to the constable. So if we have a 300 case increase at nearly $100 per case, just, it's $90, that's $27,000. That'll more than adequately cover anything that I've asked for in this, and what I consider a very conservative request to you. So I know I'm taking up other people's time by being up here, but I wanted to get this information in your hands so you'd have enough understanding of what's going on out here. I'm trying to inform everybody what's going on, because y'all need to know. You need to have your hand on the pulse of everything that's going on in the county. And so that's why I'm here, and took a little extra time, and I apologize to my constituents and folks out here. But any questions? Any questions to get me to shut up and get me gone?
I've got one.
Okay.
Tom, explain this to me. I really don't understand it. I know how much work you do.
Okay.
And I know how busy you are. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But why is it last year in 2018, the entire fees and fines that came into the county
Yes, sir.
was $179,976 from JP1.
Mm-hmm.
JP2 was $179,296.
Okay.
JP3 was 106, JP4 was 172. My point is,
I can
and
break
this
all those
year-
numbers down for you because I can have
and
an
this
answer for
year
your question.
is almost exactly the same as far as year to date.
Yes, sir.
The actual money that's coming in,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not questioning this. I know how busy you are.
Mm-hmm.
But why are the other courts producing it? And I'm a business person.
Sure.
The money that comes back into the county that's funding the courts,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay?
I can explain
It's
all that
almost
to you.
identical, the same for the JPs,
Okay.
regardless of how much work you're doing.
Okay. All
And
right.
that is confusing to me.
Okay, well, it's all rooted in traffic fines.
I
Okay?
understand that, but
Okay.
you made
Here's-
364 stops, traffic stops.
Right. Okay, let me break it down to you by precinct.
Okay,
Judge Ball's precinct has very little road mileage. My
I
tickets were
understand that.
in town and whatnot. He's got a few miles out 103, that's it. So Judge Ball is not a huge traffic fine collector. Most of his fees are coming from the civil side. That's where all the work is. There's no work in collecting traffic fines. A robot can collect traffic fines. okay?
DPS is out there
Yeah.
doing the work.
So in precinct number 2, who collects typically, historically, the most fines in the county, he has Highway 59 North, he has 69 North, he has 103 West, and he has 94. He has the roads that the troopers are working, okay? And so they file more traffic charges with precinct 2, okay? Again, very little judge involvement, okay? Precinct 3 is kind of down the beaten path. they don't have much civil down there at all. So
No.
they're collecting traffic fines because the troopers have got from Lufkin to Zavala and beyond, you've got 20 or 30 miles down there to work. So they collect some traffic. The Diboll precinct doesn't have much highway in it, but they've got the waste strip. And so the bulk of their collections are probably going to be from the CVE cases that are filed at the waste strip. Again, we're going back to traffic court, which very little court involvement. Again, the clerks are receiving the fees, fielding the phone calls. The judge cannot talk to anybody that calls in about their case. Everybody says, call Judge Ball, call Judge Cheshire, call Judge Puckett. The judge cannot speak with a person who has litigation pending in his court, traffic fine or civil case, unless they want to plead guilty or whatever. He's not supposed to talk to them. So they go to the court clerk. The judge talks to very few people about a case.
I understand all that, and I did already know the answer to why the money was there. But my question is this court has to make a decision as to increasing your funding, which is much higher than all the other precincts and all the other constables. Okay, and it's considerably higher, and I've got all those figures too.
Yep.
But it's still bringing in the same amount of money
No,
to
sir. No, sir.
the county.
No, sir, you're wrong. I apologize. I shouldn't say it that way. Look at Part A. That's what breaks
So
down.
you're saying
You
that these
cannot,
fees-
you can't combine the JP and the constable. That's two different animals. Look at Part A. That is the constable report card. Don't lump the constable and the JP together. We are separate entities. Those don't mesh.
So what you're saying is you've got additional fines and fees that don't go through your court?
No, sir. What I'm saying is our activity is based on Part A on that
I
handout.
understand that, but
Yeah.
I'm looking at the amount of money that's actually collected by JP1 that comes into the county, and I'm just looking
Yeah.
at strictly.
Right, that you cannot go by that lump sum, because lumped in with that figure is fines from traffic violations, the fees he collects for the court cases being filed, which is roughly $40 per case, and all that would be separate from my operation. I'm not talking about the JP's operation here at all. I'm talking about just the constable, okay? And what I've given you is the constable's report
I
card. You
understand.
can't look at the lump
I'm
sum from each
connecting you
precinct.
to the JP court because that is how the county sees it as far as fines and things that come back to the county.
Sure, but I've gone one
fund
step
the
further
court.
and I've broken it down for you. I've broken it down for you.
Okay.
Okay? Because our Odyssey database has all kinds of tricks that it can do, and we can separate things out. When you have, what you're talking about from each precinct is a pot of money, okay? We've got a pot for each precinct, and you're talking about how much was poured into the pot.
Right.
All I'm talking about is how much the constable pours in the pot, separate from what the other fees that the JP collects for copies of papers, the court filings, and traffic fines, okay? So, again, Part A is the constable report card. That is straight out of Odyssey. That tells you how many cases were served by the constable that a fee was collected for. And again, 95% of what we do is fees collected. I have a lot more papers that I collect no fees on that aren't included in this because I'm in Lufkin. I get all the criminal summonses and stuff from out of county for mental health and child custody issues that come up. Everybody calls Tom, because Tom gets it done. So they don't call somebody that don't work. They call me because they load my wagon. When you get the reputation of working hard, well, they do. They fill your boat. If you get a reputation of not doing, they don't bother calling you because they know you're not going to be there. But I'm there, and so I get all that bombarded into me. All this out-of-county stuff comes right in here to me. So anyway, but that's why I broke it out, is because I know the pots of money, and I understand all that, but I'm just talking about the constable here. I generally mention the JP courts just to give you an idea of how disparate our court time is for Judge Ball versus the others, and the others are got clerks handling the work, and the judge has to be involved in the courtroom. The clerks don't come in the courtroom, okay? So it doesn't mean any disrespect, but I've got all that broken down, and it's just a matter of, understanding that there's different pots that are filled up by different amounts of money, and I'm just focusing on how much I put in the pot. And again, by saying that it's increased that I'm going to get, and the meager request I made will more than offset by fees that are projected to come in from the increase in business that's going to happen. So,
Tom,
yes, sir.
I'm trying to wrap my head around why you're only asking for 400 hours of extra work. You know, your court works 160 hours a week,
Correct?
okay? And that's 1,920 hours a year.
Yes, sir.
Basically, besides the holidays, the 13 holidays that we get. You really believe that you're just only gonna need another extra 400 hours? I mean,
Well-
I'm just,
Do I really believe that?
no, I don't believe it.
No,
because
and you don't believe it, and neither does
I
anybody
talk-
sitting here believe it, but I can't come in here and ask for
I talked
for
to
the
you at
globe.
2:30
I'm asking
Wednesday
for.
afternoon.
Yes, sir.
And I know at 8:30 that afternoon, you were still working because I saw you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, again, what I alluded to earlier is walk before you run. All I'm doing is asking for a little bit of help, and if you choose to give me more, I will not turn it down. But there's a starting point for everything. So, old conservative Tom, he don't ask for the world. He just comes in here and asks for just enough to help him get by. And so that's why I'm just, you know, I'm trying to be, not ask for anything way out in left field. Just ask. But whatever you choose to bestow upon me will be
So
graciously and gratefully
Your
accepted.
400 hours that you're asking for
Very
is
conservative
very
request.
conservative request.
Correct. That's, again,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Thanks,
Thank you
Ron.
for your time, John.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate it.
Have you got
Appreciate y'all's attention.
numbers
Yes,
on
sir.
that, James?
Yeah. Yeah. Sheriff?
Have you got numbers on that? I can't see that.
Oh.
Tell me what it is.
We've got it. We've got it all. It's $12,000 increase.
Total.
Yeah, it's 11,974.
Okay.
That's just within
Yeah,
the
right.
budget. That's
Yes,
all.
sir.
All right, thank y'all for inviting us today, and, there was a lot said there, and, you know, I'm gonna kind of quickly go over ours, and then Roy's gonna go into details, but, you know, nothing against Tom, I like Tom, and I like all the constables, but I sit there and listen to all that. And everybody knows that I've always been straightforward, and I try to do it humbly and with respect, but I gotta stand up for my department too. And I'm gonna tell you, there's the county attorney and the DA and the sheriff's department is the criminal law enforcement of this county. The DA's office is in dire need, and so is the county attorney, but I'm gonna tell you, the sheriff department, as well. And, and I'm gonna say some things here that's probably not real popular, but about the constable deal. But they're sitting there asking for more money. We done been through that with the sheriff department. We're needing, and we're gonna, and I'll go over, we're gonna ask for one more deputy. And we're asking, you know, and I'll be honest with you, we didn't put it in the proposal because we tried to be conservative, but the sheriff department is in bad need of retaining deputies, attracting and retaining. Because our pay at the sheriff department is terrible. I mean, we make less than y'all's workers. You know, y'all upped y'all's workers last year, the commissioners, except Cheshire. But you upped some of your other employees.
We did do that out of our own budget.
I know that.
Just for
I know. I remember reading in the paper, and respectfully, this is a business. I'm not mad at none of you guys, but almost, you know, this is a business that we're running here. And we gotta stand up for departments, and everybody's important, and I understand that. But I go back to, we are the criminal law enforcement for this county. We are the security for this county. And I got a problem at the sheriff department attracting and retaining employees, because we're at 39.3. They're bringing home $900 every 2 weeks. We're looking at other counties around us, Nacogdoches and some others. We're losing them. We've lost 2 right now. We just had one yesterday turn resignation in, Levy Hancock. And we're gonna lose another one probably. Schools are hiring 2 more. The schools are outpaying us, guys, by $8,000. We can't even compete with public schools. And then you know, you deal with all the other agents. But go back to the constable. I mean, they're asking for more money, but the only problem I have, You know, and I like Tom, and I've always have, me and him get along, but the only problem I have with all the constable situation is this, is that they are the bailiff of the court, and their job is to serve civil papers. Their job, their last, duty would be out there running the roads and writing tickets and all those things, working school zones, working funerals. Do you know that they make more than the sheriff time they do all that? I mean, the same as y'all do, the commissioners. I got 115 employees, and y'all make the same amount of money as I do, okay? And these guys that are out there doing these other jobs and using the gun and the badge to go out there and work all these extra jobs are making more than I am. And I'm sitting here trying to run the department for this whole county, for law enforcement. And we're putting our guy, y'all know what we get. We got on an average, 3 deputies working out there on the road still. We have 1 increase this year, thank you. We did need that, when we're asking for 1 more. We're trying to be conservative. Y'all did do good by giving us 1 more, but again, the pay is go back to the pay, is killing us, guys. When you can't even compete with a public school, that's an embarrassment for the Angelina County to be in that kind of predicament. When we're trying to retain, and we got good people there. You know, we do annual reports every year. That has never been done in this county. Never been done. So if somebody wants to see what the Angelina County Sheriff's Department is doing, they can look at our annual report. We are always straightforward with y'all. We got everything presented. We come in here all these years. We come in for certificate pay. We came in here for adjustment on pay for the deputies, like if they've been working 4 years, 8 years, 12 years. Everything we've tried, we've been turned down. And now it's caught up with us. Now we're in a predicament. When you're sitting there and you got no applicants, maybe 1 or 2, and they've been fired from one county to another, we are not gonna hire them. And we will hold out if we have to, because we want good law enforcement. You know that, you've been through my Citizens Academy. We don't put up with anything, you know that. We fire them, we indict them, we arrest them. We don't put up with that. We got integrity at the Sheriff's Department. We have openness at the Sheriff's Department. And we're not, that's what I thought when we came in, bring in good people and do good things and show you that we're gonna be truthful, we're gonna be open with you, and we're gonna do it correctly. And I know it's ticked off a lot of people because, I put that information out there. The public is concerned about it, guys. I live in the county too. But what we have proposed, you have it in front of you. We have 1 deputy, 2 cars that we're putting in for. We've increased we got cut on our gas. We've increased that. We've increased our maintenance. I believe it's our maintenance. We've increased that. And Roy, I'll let you go into detail.
That's pretty much the increases that the sheriff just mentioned. Number 1 was the deputy position, and also it was an increase requested $3,000 on vehicle expenses. If we get what we're asking for 2 additional vehicles, then plus the cost of maintenance is going up as well by $3,000. Fuel, we're asking for additional fuel. We had a shortfall last year of about $7,000, I believe it was. And if we add 2 new employees, or actually it's going to
What was the shortfall last year on fuel?
I believe it was $7,000.
6 or 7?
I believe I got it right here. I'll give you the exact.
That's okay. I knew it was about that, but I couldn't remember
60,
exactly.
yeah, 67 or something like that. And what we also did is to help patrol out, we moved a warrant deputy to patrol as well. Moved the courthouse with y'all's approval to patrol, so that gives us 2 more, and this will be a 3rd one we're asking for to help out too. We're trying to do our part as well, and the warrants division, they're having to double up on the work and do that with 1 person there. So we're gonna try and see how that works. But anyway, if we added 3 additional people to the patrol, that's gonna up the gas budget as well. That's the reason for the extra request in that. Also down in capital, I put an additional supplement to go with the request too. I believe you have that. The top part of supplement A is with the 1 additional deputy with the vehicle and all equipment. And the dollar amount for that that's the top portion of that document. The bottom portion of that is for the two deputies that we reassigned, one from the courthouse and one from warrants. We're asking for one additional vehicle for that. We moved a warrant vehicle to take care of the other one. And that's in addition to the in-car computer systems for the 3 cars. And that's the difference in the price on the bottom of that. If we don't get the extra deputy, then this whole top part would do away with that. Make it simple for you to look at. But we have already put the 2 deputies on the road, so the bottom part, we need that for sure. Any questions so far about it?
Guys, what we're looking at that y'all can't see is $58,333, basically, the difference in
I'm sorry.
proposed and requested.
Now, that difference is a little bit lower because of the fact that some of the certificate pay that is requested was already being paid, so I had gone ahead and added it to our, what was requested,
That was
what
already
we're
part of it.
proposing, because we're already paying it. So the difference there is really gonna be a little bit more certificate pay plus the cost of the new deputy.
And the total was what?
Right, well,
59,
58,333, if you add the extra certificate pay, roughly $60,000.
And that's just for the deputy alone.
Yeah. Well,
No, that's everything.
59,333 is for the deputy plus the additional certificate pay. Some of the certificate pay is already being paid that wasn't budgeted for. So we're already paying them, so I included it in our proposed amount that we, coming
She
forward.
projected the
because-
certificate pay, because when it comes up, if it's not there, we can't pay the employee the certificate pay.
Yeah,
They'd
and
have to wait till the next budget.
they gotta wait till next
Well,
year.
it hasn't-
Next year.
Just so you know that it hasn't been being done that way. They
Right.
send over the paperwork and we pay it whether it's
Yes.
budgeted or not. But in the 2020 requested amount, that includes all the new deputy plus all the certificate pay. But there's not that much additional certificate pay because of the fact we were already paying some of them their certificate pay that wasn't budgeted for in 2019. So I already have it included in the dollar amount for
Right.
proposed. Follow
The
me?
increase.
So therefore,
Can you
there's,
see that?
It looks like a whole lot more than $58,000.
58,000 is the difference between the proposed and requested. Part of that is the adjustment figures there. Actually, when you're look at your 2020
because you're just looking for
requested
one
versus
person,
the
right?
2019,
One.
you're looking
Yeah,
at
just one
This
deputy.
one.
about 300 and, roughly 318,
Yeah, about 300.
$19,000.
That's the reason I'm saying, where you
Yeah.
get 58?
Oh, I'm sorry, I confused you. The 58 was the difference between, I'm sitting here looking at something that you're not seeing. That was the difference between the proposed and requested. The actual difference between the 2019 budget and the 2020 budget is the 300.
The new patrol deputy, total cost with benefits and everything is $57,179.
Yeah,
That's the cost for the new
Yeah,
patrol.
complete package.
that's,
Yeah.
Well, this here's showing 131,000 by the time you deck
That's-
him out.
yes, by the time you.
I mean, we gotta include that in there, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, not in our
Yeah.
payroll schedule, we don't. That's
Not
in-
Okay, you just don't
payroll,
pay
but
it.
One-time
Yeah.
purchase on the
Okay.
equipment.
That's a one-time purchase.
This is the one-time purchase on.
It's
the
not gonna
equipment.
be recurring now.
Okay.
Where the salary deal is.
Yeah, just the salaries in that top line there.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
The rest of it's down below.
Right.
Yeah. But you can't just put people on without giving them something, somehow to get out and patrol, so. The extra vehicles are quite a bit more of expense and the extra fuel cost.
What was the total? What's the total of what you're asking for this
I
next
think it's
year?
about 337,
Is that what it is?
337 to 292, roughly is what he's saying.
Everything, just
He's talking about
total.
cars. You talking about cars and.
Yeah.
Everything, yeah.
What would it
The
be?
entire budget.
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know what the actual salary would.
No.
go up to.
I'm
No,
saying,
he's talking about cars and
yeah,
salary.
what are you,
$206,000
Is
is on
that-
supplement A.
that
That's
covers
for the-
everything?
That's for the deputy and the 2 cars.
Okay, 206.
206.
Yeah.
And the only thing that will be reoccurring would be the $58,000 for the salary.
Yes.
The rest of it, that's fund balance money that you could do without raising taxes, I guess.
You're roughly talking about a difference of $250,000 from 2019 budget and what's been requested. According to my new math. And I'm sure we'll discuss this more, but do y'all have any more questions? for the
Yes, I
sheriff?
do. In 2016, 17, your fuel budget ran about $99,000, about $100,000, just rounded off. And then 2018, there was a significant increase in fuel consumption. What was the disparity for?
Talking about $27,000.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had another gas, you know, major another gas, because gas prices, well, we didn't have, the gas got cut on us, and then the
Right.
prices went up, you know.
But the prices went up.
Yeah.
Prices didn't fluctuate that much.
No, not that much, but that was a part of it, though, is what I'm saying.
Okay, but historically, we have been,
Yeah, our total calls went up as well, and also it depends on staffing levels. If we have vacancies, then that's cars that's, you know, we're not having to send people on calls as far as, you know, we don't have people to do it. So it depends on staffing level and price of gas and number of calls that come in. There's a lot of variables
well,
to
I was
determine
just
how much
curious.
gas you use.
I mean, because it wasn't making sense to me, you know, while previous 4 years, basically, we were averaging around 100,000, and then in 2018, we jumped basically 30%.
I think the price of gas went up substantial during that time too. The 3 years before that, it was pretty low.
I'll check that number.
But see, what he's saying is, like, on the manpower issue, it depends on, you know, some years it fluctuates on if the shortage that we have,
Mhm.
and then how many are driving and not driving, you know. That's, and then, of course, the gas price going up like it does.
Yeah.
The number of calls, if you look at the annual report, the number of calls have increased every year. They're not going down. So
I
there's gonna be a
agree.
lot more.
I
you know,
agree with
movement.
that.
We've
I
also
get
added
that.
another deputy patrol as
And
well.
we added another deputy.
Well, that would be on this
The
year.
warrant deputy,
We added a warrant deputy,
Yeah, that was last
that
year.
was last year.
Last year on that.
Yeah, let me mention one
so that
thing.
would be,
Go ahead.
you know, one deputy would increase,
But I'm just saying it's gonna be an increase. I'm not, you know,
Yeah.
just saying that's part
I
of it.
don't think you can put your finger on just one thing,
Yeah,
it's
it's
multiple
hard to,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, but I was gonna show
Hard to
one
know
thing.
that.
Year-to-date so far in May is a little over 55,000 so far.
so right now, we're basically on pace for doing what we've
No, that's
done.
May, that's shy of 1 month for half of the year. That's what I'm saying, we're probably gonna be more in line with 125 to 130,000. Actually, once it comes out this year.
Of what, okay.
Yeah, because that's, that year-to-date so far in May, 55,044 is still a month shy.
Because about average, a deputy's going to spend somewhere a little less than $4,000 a year on fuel if he does his patrolling.
Man, I'll look for broke.
I don't have that figure with me,
Well, I'm just
Commissioner. I'd
I'm
have
just
to-
doing a
Yeah, I don't
ballpark,
know.
I'd be telling you wrong if I
you
told
know,
you.
and basically estimating about what I drive as well, you know. there are days I could average over 300 miles, which I know a deputy can do that.
They probably drive a
Easy.
little faster than you do, I think.
Well, I don't know. I've been stopped before.
Maybe not.
I do have a little reputation of driving too fast at times, but I'm trying to control that. But yeah, I mean, I know they can put, you know, some miles on a vehicle in one day.
Yeah.
But, you know, on average, it'll be about, you know,
Well,
48.
it's not just mileage. If you look at, I don't think you sit there and let your car idle all day where they have all the equipment in their car and they go on calls and they can't just turn the key off if they've got to get back in the car and go. It's got to be running, so the mileage on this car
I'm
is
on board
not
with that.
temporary.
I'm on board with that. I totally, and I've been there. I mean, I totally
You know,
understand that.
it's kind of hard to say exactly, you know, what it's gonna be each year. That's a guess. That's my best guess. So, I mean, that can
Sheriff,
change.
I do take issue just a little bit, and we can respectfully talk about this, I believe, without, you know, too much. Last year, you talked about, you know, the increase that I gave my foreman. You know, I bumped him up to $48,205. And we can compare our pay, which my pay as commissioner is $61,912. And your pay is $64,612.
That's because of SIP.
I get it, okay, and that's well deserved and earned. And then my foreman would be equal to what, Chief Owens would be. But he runs my department, just like, you know, he's the second man in command, you know, and, you know, Chief Owens pays at 54, and I'm not talking about his certificate pay. I'm talking about just his base salary, 54,600, and my foreman, like I said, is 48,205. So there is a disparity between, you know, the pay. An operator for precinct 4 is $38,522, and a deputy's pay is $39,312, which there's, you know, the deputies are making more than a regular operator. With a certificate paid at $2,700, their pay is gonna be $4,212, okay? You're competing with the schools, and they're paying, what'd you say, $8,000?
$8,000.
$8,000 more.
County.
Okay. I'm competing with the oil field.
Well, Bobby, let me just stop you.
Well, we're
right
just
there.
talking about
No,
money.
I know, but
We're
I
just-
know,
we're just
but let
talking
me-
about money.
But like I said, we're talking business, right?
Yeah, money.
Okay, but we're talking about we're talking about guys putting their life on the line.
I get it.
These people, when they have to apply for a job, they fill out a 32-page application.
Mhm.
We gotta do backgrounds, we gotta they have to meet certain requirements, they have to be into an academy.
Mhm.
You know, it's a whole different ballgame. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You can't compare that to law enforcement when your guys can come in there and fill out a 1 or 2 page application. Our people can't come in there and fill out something like that. It takes 2 months for us to hire somebody because of all the background and all the other stuff that we have to do.
Been through.
There is no way you can compare, and that's why the city and the state do not do that when they look at their departments, and divisions in their department, like their law enforcement. They pay them different than they do their other departments in their
Sure.
company or whatever it may
Sure.
be.
But
And I think, and the public gets that,
They
they
do.
understand that.
they do, and I'm gonna say something here that I think I probably have a little more experience than the rest of the court. I'm not trying to brag or boast, but Terry has a little bit of experience with it because his son's in law enforcement. But nowhere anywhere that any of my guys go that work at precinct 4 have been refused service because of the uniform they wear, which is important, okay? Your guys are in a different situation, and I totally understand there's a different situation. They can be refused service, food can be tampered with, which is wrong, you know, and they put up with way more disparities than what we put up with. But I'm just talking about dollars, okay? We're talking about dollars versus dollars.
Right.
All right? and I've been through law enforcement, police academy, and, these guys go through police academy and stuff as well. Some of them even have degrees in criminal justice and things like that, which some of them even have 4-year degrees. I get it. Well, you don't get 4-year degrees as being an operator. It takes you 4 years to learn how to operate, So we're investing immense amount of time into these operators to get them to be a qualified and quality operator.
Okay, let me just stop there. Your guys are important. That's what, I've never said that.
No. I know.
They are, but I just want to spit just kind of on your own that.
Yeah.
Your guys are important, but what I'm saying, you're kind of missing the boat, is that they need to be paid that, not denying that, but our guys ought to be paid more though, because what we had to go through to hire people and the qualifications that they have to meet to work there, and all the training that we have to put them through. I mean, you put them all through, there's no telling what that costs. We never have figured it out. The time we put them through LTO training and all this stuff we buy, and all this training, and then all of a sudden
I've put pen to paper
they
on
get
it, and I
more
can give you
money,
a number,
you know,
it's
so
about
we're
$180,000.
Gentlemen,
That's-
we're gonna have
Let's-
another,
yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have another time to discuss this, and I think,
And I know that y'all may raise taxes because everybody's wanting to, raise throughout the county, and that's great, I think that's great. I'm just saying, we didn't put it in our proposal, I'm just saying if there is money there, would y'all do that? If you wanna help I'm just saying the county's in dire need for attracting and retaining deputies, and it's in a bad, we're in a really bad
In
spot.
order to compete with the other agencies and all,
Yeah.
that's just what it is. You can argue about it all day long, but if you're gonna compete in the market, you gotta pay what the market's asking.
Right.
If it's for this profession or that profession, if it's an attorney, you gotta pay that level to get a good attorney. It don't matter what it is, it's by profession is what dictates the salaries.
Right.
Not belittling anybody,
I know.
everybody's important, we all know that,
Yeah.
You know
But if
what
you're
an
gonna
operator-
compete in the market.
You know what an operator makes in the oil field?
No, sir, I don't.
Starting pay is $40 an hour.
guys, any more questions?
Hey, I just got one right quick.
Sure, go ahead.
You talking about raises? Are they in this? Did y'all put them numbers in this? Not you?
No.
No, that's what I said.
Okay,
That's one
okay.
employee.
One employee, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, this is just one guy, yeah.
Workshop.
Okay, yeah.
If you do have the money there,
Yeah,
because I know you're trying to give everybody raises, you're
Yeah.
maybe, but anyway, and that's great, everybody does.
yeah,
That'll be the top priorities.
Yeah,
right, okay. All right, I just didn't see,
All right,
anyhow, I didn't see. it.
right, I understand.
thanks, guys.
Okay,
y'all.
you bet.
Good presentation. Stacy?
Thank you.
I should say Stacy and Nick.
We had a couple increases on here. For our inmate medical care, I don't know, everybody up here knows the situation we were in last year. This year, I think we're doing pretty fair with maintaining our budget as closely as possible as we can. We did have a slight increase in it based off on the historically increasing expenses throughout. Plus, we also had an increase built into our contract with Southern Health Partners. The next thing is like the medical contract, we had that, it was a 3% increase for the vendor. Down here on the prisoner transport, we had our prisoner transport that we were using, they actually are not transporting anymore. So we're having to hunt someone to transport inmates for us. Several occasions, it actually was cheaper for us to send our own transport deputies instead of using that transport service because they are so much more expensive than what we were paying previously. I think they are working on that one company that we were using, and they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do to get back in the business. They had some issues that prevented them from continuing transports. I believe they had a death in custody on one of their transport vehicles, which caused them to have to go through a bunch of legal stuff. So right now, we can't use them, but we're asking for that increase in that, just based off the last 2 years of what we've paid and stuff, just an FYI for next week, we have a prisoner transport that we're having to pick up ourselves from Colorado because it's actually cheaper for us to send those two guys for an overnight stay than use a transport service.
And we just went to New Mexico,
Yes.
Georgia, and Washington DC.
Yes.
Don't you have a new vehicle requested? in
Yes,
this
sir.
also for
Yes,
that?
sir. We also, one of our units, Unit 12, We had discussed letting that unit go last year, because of the mileage, and it is actually the last Crown Vic that we have at the jail. This year, it's got, about 182,000 miles on it, and it has had some problems with alignments and having to change tires more frequently because of the way it's driving. So we did put on here a request, an increase in our capital outlay to replace that vehicle. Are we moving that vehicle to somewhere else? Are we,
We're gonna trade it in
we're just gonna trade it in?
for you,
So,
through the county.
yeah, through the county. We did get a new vehicle last year, I believe it was, and it has greatly benefited the jail to have that vehicle on hand for us to use for these long transports. But yes, we did ask for that, and the AC replacement as well is built into that capital outlay.
Can I ask the question?
Sure.
Is that, are we talking about a van?
No,
Yeah.
We're wanting to get a truck because we do have things that we have to haul and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
This vehicle will not only be used for transport, it'll also be used for when we send our county jailers to training. That staff that go, it's usually about 4 people roughly that go. We're gonna use that vehicle as well to send them to training.
Okay.
We
So-
recommend they don't drive their personal vehicle.
Yeah, but y'all have a van, don't
We
you?
have several. and
Yes.
that's
I
the
thought
reason
you
we're not
did.
getting another. We have
But that's the ones they just transport here local?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Yeah.
For the long runs,
Yeah.
we've been using the Tahoe, our newer vehicle, for the long runs.
Oh, okay.
Because it is more comfortable for the inmate, especially on a long run like that. You know, they have a little bit more space in that Tahoe than they would in one of those other vehicles.
But the newer one you want to do is a pickup?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, it's good enough, thank
Yes,
you.
sir. And then our utilities have gone up, just, Nick ran some numbers on it based off the last 4 years. There was an increase in that, and as well as the natural gas. That's basically all that we have at the jail that we're asking for. You know, like I said, the medical budget, we also wanna, I think we've talked to, Janice a couple times about splitting that line item into 2 for our medical, because we wanna pay our, cost for our contract in a line item on its own. Because last year, we were actually having to move money to even pay our bill with Southern Health Partners per our contract. If we keep that separate, I think we would be able to manage that, cost a little better on additional things, doctor's appointments, medication, things like that, if it's in its own line item.
Now, we've appropriated the contract price to its own line item so that there's no concerns about that not getting paid if the medical overall budget was depleted.
Right,
This would be a safety net so that we make sure that the contract is actually still paid, and then we can visit other options, have the other money run out.
yes,
I noticed you decreased your food cost.
yes, sir.
Okay, what's that all about?
Well, a lot of it is that we're using all the products that we're using from the garden that we have. It does significantly help us with that. The vendor that we're using for the bulk of our products is Shaver Foods. So they run specials on their items, so we're able to get it at a cheaper cost than we could from someone local here, a smaller vendor. So that's really helped us in maintaining our food cost a little better.
Okay.
I'll tell you something else on that was good, that the warden, we all kind of talked about it and got understanding on the garden. Instead of building, or having corn, we did a lot of peas, because peas are more expensive and the corn's not, if you have to buy it. So we did a whole lot of peas, and, keep up the face, I put all the pictures, but
Yeah.
of how much, we've done a lot, and that saves a lot of money, just.
And he's already planning for his winter garden now, of what
Oh,
he's gonna
really?
put in that winter garden, because once these peas stop, he's gonna be turning all that over into the ground and getting it ready for our winter garden.
That's a $12,000 decrease in what you're asking. That's
But it's not a big deal.
Consider it adjusters good pay.
Yeah, and being conservative, but.
Yes, yes. I mean, and we do have excessive amounts of peas that we do donate to, like Salvation Army or the Women's Shelter.
Are y'all storing any of your produce that you?
Yes, sir.
are storing?
Yes, sir. Our inmates right now, the male inmates that work for Mr. Stanley, they're working the garden and picking the product. And then they take it in, and the female inmates are actually shelling the peas and stuff. And so all of that's going into bulk, into our cooler and freezer for later use. But the inmates are loving the peas, so.
You can help it.
Yeah, that's good. All right, guys, any more questions?
So the total jail increase requested is 67,288?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
It's about, yes, sir,
Because of
that's
the-
about right.
Mainly, most of that's from the VA.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Anything else, guys?
Thank y'all.
Thank you, good presentation.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Mr. Martin, sir.
Do each of you have a copy of this budget request letter that I did? If you don't, I've got some extras.
Do you?
Anybody doesn't have one?
I don't believe I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ken?
Thank you, sir.
If you have an extra one, I'll keep it around and look it up, just have one. Thanks, sir.
I'm sure I have one for me.
Yeah.
Here's the next
Do,
one.
do you have one?
I got one.
Here's the next one.
All right.
Okay.
I've got it in there, I just didn't want to late.
I know what the Commissioners Court is facing. I know you're not gonna have enough money for all the requests that everybody wants. What I would encourage you to look at is funding those critical needs that have to be addressed. And I don't want to take away from anybody else, but criminal justice is on the front line of what we do and you do to protect our citizens and to keep them safe. And I think that those requests that are made in that regard are ones that have to be looked at. Back in 2012, when Clyde Harrington decided to leave the position as district attorney, there were a lot of people that encouraged me to run. And I told them at that time I wasn't going to do it because I knew how understaffed the district attorney's office was and how much of an impossible position that was. And then in 2016, I consented to run because I felt like it was my duty to give back to this county. And I'm not saying that so I can get pats on the back and an attaboy. I'm well compensated for what I do. But just to point out to you the dire need that exists in the district attorney's office. I was looking at a budget request that Mr. Harrington did in 2007, and he was comparing the district attorney's work from when he started in the DA's office in 1984 to what it was in 2007, and he said in most statistical areas the DA's workload had tripled in that time, and in many areas it had more than tripled. And that's, you know, the population didn't triple, but the amount of work triples. And since then, we've had a lot of changes in the criminal justice system. One principally is I don't know if you're familiar with what's called the Michael Morton Act, which significantly increases the amount of work that we have to do as far as documenting and providing copies of things to the defense, and mostly just making sure that we've shown that. About probably 1/4 of the time that I spend is not reviewing cases, not preparing cases. It's actually just documenting that I've given the defense attorney everything I have. And some of that is, a lot of that is collecting from the law enforcement agencies everything they have, because it's harder for them to get used to the fact they got to turn over to us everything, because we're deemed under the law to know everything the law enforcement agency knows, even though we don't know everything. But that's some of the problems that we have. I want to answer the question that you had, Commissioner Cheshire, about CPS.
Yes.
I texted Amber Bewley, who is my CPS attorney. She says that as far as an actual figure, she didn't have one, but she said it's easily over 100 cases a year. And that right now they have about 200 kids in CPS care. And what's different about CPS cases than our typical cases, all of our cases have a lot of pretrial things involved in them, but when in a CPS case, CPS has to have staffings that usually our attorney attends, and then once a kid's taken into CPS care, they have regular status hearings in court that you have to prepare for. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into that. She said that our caseload, and as you can imagine that it would be, is a lot greater than most of the other counties, or all of the other counties in our regional CPS area. And most of the other counties have a full-time attorney for CPS. What it amounts to is she's probably a little more than half of her time is spent on CPS, and she could, I'm sure, spend more of it, but it takes obviously away from her as a prosecutor. She has a 1/2 caseload compared to the other prosecutors in the office. And I have a 1/2 caseload compared to the other prosecutors in the office. But what we have requested for this year is an increase of 1 prosecutor, 1 more investigator, and the Commissioner's Court portion of the grant that was approved for a victims assistance coordinator. If you recall, I came to you several months ago and asked for your approval to seek grants for an additional prosecutor, an additional investigator, and a victim assistance coordinator. And the one grant that was approved was for the victim assistance coordinator. The other grants, we just didn't have, they only had enough money in this DETCOG area to give Jasper County and Newton County each 1/2 of what they wanted, which they both wanted basically a prosecutor, and they don't have it. And I'll be honest, they had a greater need than we did. I don't argue with that, but there wasn't enough money in our area to fund those. What an additional prosecutor would enable us to do is to have somebody to review cases at the outset. The way it goes right now is the case gets filed and it may be several months till we look at it and then see, well, how about this witness you need to talk to, or this evidence you need to gather, and by that time a lot of it's stale. That is a situation that doesn't help us protect our citizens in the way that we need to when there are those kind of inefficiencies in reviewing cases. It doesn't help us as far as being able to clear out some of those cases, get them out of the jail into the prison, or if it's not a good case, get it dismissed and get the person out. And that creates problems for the sheriff, because he's talked to me for, why do you have all these people, these felons over here that are in jail that we're spending money on, and we're housing them, waiting for them to go to trial? Well, every bit of the fact of how we're understaffed affects how those things occur. I'm asking then that additional prosecutor, the figure that, I think we got this from you, is that right, Janice, for the prosecutor at the entry level? Salary for a prosecutor plus benefits is $98,595. Also asking for an investigator. We've got 1 investigator now with 6 attorneys. Kind of the standard in district attorney's offices is 1 investigator for every 2 prosecutors. So we're 3 times below the level. This wouldn't bring us up to where we need to be, but it would certainly help a lot. And there's kind of a misnomer as far as what a district attorney's investigator does. It's not the same as a sheriff's office investigator or a police detective. They don't go out and investigate crimes. What they're investigating is where our witnesses are, serving those subpoenas on witnesses, talking to some of the witnesses maybe that the police didn't get a chance to talk to, or that we find out when we're getting ready for trial, helping the prosecutors get ready for trial, researching criminal histories, and getting judgments from other counties on some of the people that we try. And the way we are right now is, and it really affects our ability to, once again, get cases ready for trial and process them. Many times we have to kind of schedule who's going to use the prosecutor, the investigator right now. And when we're trying to get cases ready, twice a month for jury selection, and you got to go out and find those witnesses and serve them up with subpoenas, it limits our ability to be able to get cases ready for jury trial when we've only got one person to serve those subpoenas. And then that causes problems with our judges. Well, why can't you have this case ready, Judge? There's a bottleneck that exists when you're not staffed the way you need to be. The third thing that we've asked for is that county match of the victim assistance coordinator pay, and that's $11,916. That position will actually be available if we got final approval of that. It'll be available in October, so I'll probably come back and ask you to fund, that would be 1/4 of that for this year, and then this 11,000 to be starting in January. If you can't do that, then we'd have to put off hiring that person until January. Now, the next thing on that, before I go into these other minor adjustments in the budget, is space. And Judge Lindbergh and I have talked about that. We've got some closets that we can, some big closets, one big closet that we can maybe make into another space, office space. There's the county law library, that we get rid of those books that look pretty, but nobody's using. We might be able to make some space there, but that might be for conference rooms. But we're going to, I don't have the authority to, I guess I could do like some unnamed officials in the past, we just go ahead and tear a wall down and, but I'm not going to do that, guys, don't worry. Well, we need some help on that. I'll take the people, but I need you to give me space too.
Yeah, we're working on
I've been in your office, and I know you are stacked on top of each other. Are you maybe advocating some remodel to make it more efficient?
I'm not advocating that, but my assistants are. They want to subdivide my office, which is bigger than what I need. It really is, but doggone it, I want to keep it. But
yeah.
But if I had to, I guess I could put a door in a different place and subdivide some of that.
I haven't looked
I'm
at the
not
whole layout.
proud about that. It's the biggest office I've ever had in my life.
The investigator, is that a licensed attorney?
No, the investigator is a certified peace officer.
Gotcha.
But anyway, just to say that I think we're out of space in the courthouse, just about. And Don has talked to us about some space that's available in the annex. None of the way we'd have to do it promotes efficiency in the office. I think the long-range plan is moving us across to what we call the back cave, the old sheriff's office. But and that's not an optimal solution, but I understand where y'all are on that. Back to the budget, we've had some expenses that are related to trial transcripts and supplies and trial expense. We're requesting that last item of $4,500 increase in trial expense. And a lot of that's related to the kind of cases that we've got. Right now, we've got 6 capital murder cases that are pending. Now, those are not death penalty cases. We don't have any death penalty cases. We do have one that is still unsolved. If it's solved, it's probably would be a death penalty case, and that's, as you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars that the county would have to pay. And I'm not seeking those kind of cases, but the capital murder cases that we have, which are mostly deaths of infants, or I think they are all deaths of infants, are cases that require a huge outlay of time. One of my assistants, Ken Dice, just finished, as you probably read in the paper, he had a 2-week hearing or trial just on finding one defendant competent to stand trial. She had already had a jury trial under the previous administration where she was found incompetent to stand trial. That 2-week trial, there was 6 weeks of him just spending time preparing on that. For every hour we're in court, it's probably about at least 3 hours of preparation that you got to do. And those kind of things, when you take a prosecutor out of the office just doing one thing, well, his other stuff is not getting done. So that's what I'm asking. I've had a 60% turnover since I started in 2017 in the prosecutors that I have. Now, I've been extremely fortunate that in each case I've been able to replace them with someone of equal or not to denigrate the people I had before. I've been able to replace them with people that are better. But in each of those situations, it came real close to me having to hire a brand new attorney, and that's not someone you want to put in a felony prosecutor position, but it almost came down to that, and we've been fortunate. One of those folks that I got is here today, Stephanie Stroud. She was first assistant in Walker County, and I wanted her to kind of give you guys a perspective of what she sees as the difference in the workload and the inefficiencies in our office as compared to the county she came from.
Okay. Joe?
Yes.
Just one quick question about the CPS. If we go ahead and move the CPS down, I just wanted commissioners to hear this, that is going to help your office some.
That would give me about half a prosecutor back. I mean, honestly, what we really need, and I'm not asking for you this time and probably wouldn't be asking you next year, is I need 3 more prosecutors, about 2 more investigators, and a couple of more staff people. 1, I'm not asking for it because I know you can't give it to me. 2, once again, if you give me what I'm asking for now, we're going to have a hard time finding a place for them. If you gave me everything I needed, we'd have to put them in my spare bedrooms at the house.
Okay. Stephanie.
Thank you, Jeremy.
And I'll be glad to answer any questions. I think one of the things that Mr. Martin, when I came to work here in January, I was a little bit, it's always hard when you go to a new place. You have to kind of learn this system, and you have all been so kind since I've been here, and particularly Janice, you're just fantastic. But, you know, one of the things I was shocked by when I came to work here is Joe was explaining to me how the office worked, and John was the first assistant, and they had cases. I was the first assistant in the DA's office for almost 7 years, and I didn't have a caseload. I had major cases. I had capital murders and murders, some sexual assaults, but I didn't have my own caseload. My job was to sort of supervise everybody else, and I was shocked to learn that John has as many cases as I do, and I was even more shocked to learn that the elected DA has half as many cases as I do. And so that's a little bit of a different perspective. But just to kind of give you an idea, this month I'll be a prosecutor for 18 years. I am in my office right now still working on cases from 2017. And I'm not saying I'm fast at doing this or that I'm any better than anybody else. I'm probably a little quicker than a brand new lawyer, but there's a lot of cases. And I've been here for 7 months and I'm still in 2017. I still have cases that aren't processed from 2 years ago. That means I still have all of 2018 and what's coming in 2019. And I call it, people laugh at me, I call it sweeping mud. That's what we do. We sweep the mud out, and before we can get back to the door, the mud is back. And that's essentially all we're doing. We don't have enough people to efficiently move those cases. And the reason that's a problem is, one, it's a problem for the sheriff because people are in jail. It's a problem for the community because we're not adequately moving the people along. But it's a problem for the system itself because 2 years from now, cases that are happening today, when we get around to them 2 years from now, it's very difficult to get a jury of 12 people to care about a burglary that happened 2 or 3 years ago. It's very difficult to move those cases, and so we find ourselves either just making deals to try to move them along or not being able to prosecute them at all because we can't find the people, we can't locate them. I was stunned that we only have one investigator. First trial I had here with John, we didn't have an investigator to help us at all. We essentially were calling our own witnesses, we were finding our own people, we were wrangling our own people in the courthouse because we had no investigator because they were in trial in the other court and she was helping them get their folks there. And so the two of us were between questioning witnesses in the courtroom, we were running down the people that we needed. That is just not an efficient way to move cases. And it's not an efficient way for us to protect the people in this county. And so that's sort of my perspective of how far on the inefficient scale we are. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Just simply to say on behalf of the assistants in our office, we really need some help.
Would it be fair to say that the caseload that you're talking about all the way back to 2017 is pretty much throughout everybody in the DA's office is experiencing basically the same thing?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, John and I were just talking. We keep our cases in buckets because we don't have, there's just so many of them. There's no place else to keep them. I think he has 5 now buckets of unindicted files. We can indict about 10 to 15 per prosecutor a month, but we get that many or more new cases. And the only way you're ever efficient as a DA's office is, and I learned this years ago from a very learned judge, you have to move as many cases every month as you indict new cases. That's the only way you ever get ahead. And we could individually indict 10 to 15 cases a month, and it would be 3 to 4 years before we caught up to where we are. That's how far behind we are.
Wow.
So we need some help.
It's not just, I mentioned those capital murder cases. That's not the only major cases we have. We have other murder cases that are not capital. We have, unfortunately, a tremendous amount of sexual assault of children. And then you've got aggravated robberies and aggravated robberies and burglaries. And all those things affect the people that you're dealing with on a daily basis that we're not able to handle those in the way that we should. And that's not easy for me to come and say in a public forum that we're not doing the job that we should be doing, but we can. And I leave usually almost every day. It's between 6 and 6:30 when I leave the office. And it's unusual that I don't leave the office, that there's 2 of my prosecutors still there, and I don't know when they leave. And I come up on most Saturdays and a lot of Sundays, and every time I'm there, there's somebody else there. These folks I worry about them burning out. I worry about them being able to continue that. I know I couldn't have done it back when I had a family. I couldn't have been at the office as much as I have a family. Back when I had kids at home, I couldn't have done that. Thank you.
All right. I was going to mention to the court too that Stephanie has another talent, the victim assistance grant and everything. She is very good at writing grants, and she's responsible for getting the grants through that they've actually been working on.
And no, you can't use it for that.
And we're still, you know, we'll still continue to do that.
What
as
about
much as we can.
reciprocity?
Sure.
I'm constantly, people come by my office and they see these strange screens, and I'm always looking for ways to get money, so I'm
Other
always on the
grants.
hunt for grants, and I will continue to do that.
One question, that, you was talking about those 2017 cases. Is those folks still sitting in jail out here too? I
Sometimes.
mean, y'all still having to house them?
Yeah, we've had some, for years.
Really?
Well, I mean, here's the situation that we run into a lot. If a felon, an accused felon is in jail for 90 days or more than 90 days, and they haven't been indicted yet, they have to be released on a PR bond. Now, what happens with some of those folks, and the reason they're still in jail is they've got a parole hold on them that's keeping them there. Matter of fact, I've got a guy that allegedly committed a DWI trying to run over people in the Walmart parking lot. He's on parole for another DWI, but I don't have his blood test back and won't have it back for months. He got a PR bond because I didn't indict him because I don't have the evidence yet, but he has a parole hold. That's keeping him in jail and keeping people safe from him. But some of them have to be released because that's a problem across the state. The labs are running months and months behind because there's so many drug cases. But most of the time, if it's an older case, we're gonna indict it. Sometimes, the case may not be ready yet. It may need a lot of work, but we'll go ahead and indict it. Problem with that is it puts us on the time clock with the judges saying, hey, get this case to trial.
Right.
But we do try to move it. But if we indict them, then they can sit in jail. For instance, the case that we're going, that Ken tried for the competency
Right.
last month, that was 2015 murder. Here we are 4 years later, and maybe it'll go to trial this year.
And that's really not unusual. That's not unique to Angelina County. I was reading an article a couple of days ago. Harris County they have their 13 most longest serving inmates, and they have a guy who's been in jail, I think, for a little over 7 years waiting for trial. So that's not unusual in major cases like that.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something we try to avoid as much as we can, but there's just a few of us, so we can only go as fast as we can go. We don't want to get in a hurry because we don't want to make mistakes.
Right.
We certainly don't want people in jail who shouldn't be, but we want to make sure the people who should be stay there.
Right.
Wow.
That is one of the things that we do. The jail will send us over, an email saying, hey, this guy's in jail, we're having to pay for his medical, or this person's been in jail a long time, and it's a tough thing for a DA to do, to go through a list of who's in jail, and this guy that's got 15 prior arrests, but we'll go ahead and release him, or 5 prior arrests, because he's not as much of a danger, and we need to make the space.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to, almost as tough as having to figure out a budget.
Thank y'all.
Thank you all very much.
Chuck? Thank you. You two in the back. We're gonna have to reschedule y'all. You and Gary? Yeah, we'll catch y'all later. Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
I've never done one of these, never seen one, so
Oh, we're happy to have you here.
I don't have a clue what y'all expected. I guess I'll start by explaining why we have an increase or a decrease in our budget for next year of $2,003,269. And that's to finish J2 and K2 that we're currently working on this year. We're only doing half of J and maybe 3/4 of K this year. The only reason we're doing that is because of the leachate pond we have to move, and that's why the increase is in that. Slight increase in other things per Janice that Pam works with her on. As far as the increase, the new fin machine, the one we currently have is the 2008 model. That's what we use to spray ADC and grass on our slopes. We use it for other things too, firefighting, stuff like that. that was a decrease from last year of $50,000. I think the fin machine is, he gave me an estimated price, but it's hard to bid something out a year in advance. This right here, I just can't get my fingers on it. He said you could add maybe 3%, and the best price they give me right now was $72,840. And everything else is pretty much the same as it has been. You don't have any questions about anything?
On Greg and Kim, what happened there? You swap them?
Yep. Well, I was supposed to swap them last year, but it got skipped.
So you just wanted to
Janice, I worked with Janice last year on it, but Kim has been there for 11 years, and that pay scale just topped out, and then I tried to get them swapped over. Well, I've been trying, this will be the 3rd year. I've been trying to get it done. So that's the only thing I'm doing there. No more money, just moving 2 positions around. I think they actually last year moved the names but didn't move the money. I think that's how it happened, if I can remember. I'm not gonna swear to it.
Chuck, earlier in the year, you had asked me about the city and changing the rates for down at Woodville. Did that get done?
They do what now?
At Woodville, where they were bringing stuff up, did you renegotiate prices with them,
No.
the rates? Okay.
The only thing that, everything's the same, when they're, the only thing it was on the free passes with Woodville. We need to go back and look at, renegotiate it October on the city of Lufkin. That needs to be addressed, because they hadn't had an increase since we put the scales in, and I'm bad with dates.
Why
I mean,
don't we address that in regular court meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we need to do that.
But as far as, we hadn't had an increase in price at the landfill, and I don't know how many, I mean, it's, you know, round about? I'd say around 2,000. I'm guessing 2,000 was the last time the landfill had increased. It's been $5.25 per cubic yard since I could remember.
What does it need to be? What does it need to be?
That's totally up to y'all. I mean,
We're not in the landfill business.
Would you,
I understand that.
would you check with some other landfills around and kind of get an idea of when?
Well, I mean, I went and visited, you know, we're $5.25 per pickup load. You go, you know, I went and visited 6 years ago to Cut and Shoot. Our minimum pickup load $64.50.
$64.50?
Big deal.
And we're $5.25. We are one of the I'm gonna say we are the lowest landfill in Angelina, in Texas, that I know of. But it's just been surpassed and went over so many years. I mean, it's not gonna, I'm not saying go up, you'll stroke the people of Angelina County out. I mean, they stroke out over $5.25.
Right.
I mean, it's just that bad. I mean, citizens of Angelina County, they think they need to throw their trash away for free. That's just the way they think. The girl at the window, Kim, she doesn't get paid enough to deal with the public on a daily basis over $5 TARP fee or $5.25 a cubic yard for trash. I mean, it's just an ongoing battle. But when we do revisit it, you know, I suggest round it off to an even number. The 25 cents, we actually charge $5 a cubic yard. 25 cents goes to the state of Texas on every cubic yard. I bring in, you bring in. Every free day, I pay 25 cents a cubic yard to TCEQ.
Won't you do some research and bring it up in a regular court meeting, and let's go ahead and adjust those rates?
But the reason, you know, other landfills, we're the only county-owned landfill. I think Polk County did sell out to Waste Management, I believe, or Santec. The reason why other landfills charge so much to keep you out of the landfill is because they own their own trucks. They want you to pay that monthly trucking $28.75, and they know they get that money. So they charge so much at the landfill to keep mom and pops out. That's the only reason. I mean, we don't have a trucking company, we don't wanna start a trucking company. So that's the reason why we just kinda stay down on the lower end of it. But we hadn't had an increase. I mean, fuel went up since 2002. Price of equipment, price of employees, but garbage has stayed the same.
We need an increase.
I mean, I agree with 100%. I mean, we really need to visit the city of Lufkin. You know, they go by weight on everything that's not heavy. Sludge, grit, the prior commissioner's court, and, you know, they agreed to let them, anything that's heavy come in by cubic yard instead of by weight. I mean, we put the scales in at the county cost to compensate the city of Lufkin, and there's no, you know, they dropped their, just say a load of styrofoam from Pilgrim's Pride was $327 to bring in a 40 cubic yard. Now it's, I mean, 14 bucks. And you know, the city of Lufkin didn't pass that on to the consumer, you know. They're still charging them the $400 something, and it's cost them $14 to get rid of it.
Right.
So I mean, it's something that needs to be revisited.
All right. Guys, got any questions?
I suggest we revisit that pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
The city of Lufkin contract does end every October, but if nothing's said, every October, it just stays the same.
We need to do
I mean, I've talked about it in the past, they wanted to revisit this, well, we'll look at it next year, So,
Yeah.
I mean,
We're gonna look at it this year.
Yeah, if you'll do some research, find out what some of the other landfills are doing, and bring back some recommendations and get on the regular agenda.
I mean, it's hard. I don't wanna share information, cause they think I'm trying to, I mean, I'll get somebody to do that, but they won't share information with me thinking I'm trying to get their business wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it works, so.
We just figure out what's best for us.
If you were selling apples and he was selling apples, if you called him and say, how much you selling your apples for this week? They ain't gonna give you, I mean, that's just the way it works.
Right.
That's what secret shoppers are for.
But I can get numbers for landfills anywhere close to us. There's not that many, but I mean, I can get them.
Right. All right.
Thank you, Chuck.
Any more questions?
That's it.
That's it.
Good job.
Thank you, sir. What do you think, guys? We go ahead and adjourn for today and revisit this on the 24th, on our next get-together?
What's the 24th?
Janice, can you give me the DA's total request difference? And then I'll have what I need.
Oh.
You want a
Yeah,
motion to
'cause he handed
recess?
that sheet out. Hold on just a second now.
Mine wasn't added up.
Yeah, it's not added up on mine, either.
Oh, you have to do it? I can go back and do it myself. I thought you had it.
On a different sheet.
Okay, his total request is $1,200,057. You're wanting the difference between that and 2019 budget?
Yeah, his request difference.
Well, we move the difference between that. Gonna be $234,902. Most of it is his salary, the salary changes.
For the additional.
We did good. We stayed under $1 million request today. We did pretty good. We stayed under $1 million request today.
Judge, you want to recess until the 24th, or you want to adjourn and then set a new date for the 24th?
We want to, well, we can, either way, we're gonna meet again on the 24th, 9 o'clock on the 24th.
So you need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, second? Second. We do have a motion and a second to adjourn at this time. We will meet again on the 24th at 9 a.m. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.